You deserve to get paid well. You deserve to be able to take time off, go on a vacation, have health insurance, contribute to retirement. Like all those things are things that you absolutely can and should expect to be able to do as a practice owner. You should expect those from your practice, and it is doable, right? That's the good news. And that, I feel like that's what I have to shout from the rooftops. It is possible. It's not easy every day, but it absolutely is possible. And you can go build the practice that is your dream, not your nightmare.
This episode is sponsored by TherapyNotes, therapynotes.com. Be sure and check them out, and be sure and use the promo code Gordon, Gordon, and you can try them out for 2 months for free. Over 15 years ago, when I started my private practice, I had to learn a lot, and most of it the hard way, and I don't think you need to do the same. Hi, I'm Gordon Brewer, a licensed psychotherapist, and welcome to the Practice of Therapy podcast, part of the Psychcraft network of podcasts. Join me in this journey of discovery as we have conversations with other leaders and professionals in both the mental and allied health fields. Join us as we explore both the business and clinical sides of running a private practice. And welcome to the podcast. This is episode number 348 of the Practice of Therapy podcast. I'm Gordon Brewer, and so glad you've joined us, and looking forward to you hearing my conversation with my dear friend Julie Harris. Julie is no stranger to this podcast in that she's been on here several times before, and I've done a lot of collaborating with Julie over the years. Julie is the owner and person behind Green Oak Accounting, along with another podcast I've got to give a big shout out to, and that is Therapy for Your Money, which is part of another podcast that's part of the Psychcraft network. So I invite you to go over and check that out too. But Julie and I are going to talk today about compensation plans and just how we pay our employees, particularly if you are in have a group practice, and just really thinking about, the importance of making a profit. I think one of the things that happens is that we, because we're basically generous people as therapists, we sometimes maybe have a money mindset that just doesn't necessarily work. And what I mean by that is that I think a lot of times we kind of guilt ourselves into thinking, well, we've got to be generous, we've got to be kind to people, we've got to be helpful for people, and we can't take advantage of people, that sort of thing. But the truth of the matter is if you're not making a profit, you're not going to be able to stay in business. So we delve into that topic a little bit as well. And also, just as a heads up, Julie has got an upcoming webinar. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but I'll mention it here. An upcoming webinar on compensation plans. And if you go to greenoakaccounting.com/Gordon, that'll get you to the landing page to sign up for that free webinar that's going to be on September the 27th. And also, if you can't attend it that day, do sign up, because there is going to be a replay as well. So be sure and check that out. I know I'm excited about that webinar that Julie's put together. So before we get to my conversation with Julie, I've got some more things from me, along with hearing something from one of the members of the Psychcraft network, along with some words from our sponsor, TherapyNotes. When starting a private practice as a therapist, counselor, or life coach, things can feel a bit overwhelming. You're unsure where to start, what to focus on, or how to grow things. I've been in private practice now for over 18 years, and a lot has changed. I've helped countless clinicians avoid a lot of the common pitfalls and build successful practices that align with their values and lifestyle. My coaching and consulting services are all about giving you a focused plan, helping you set clear priorities, and understand exactly where to invest your time, energy, and money. We'll work on defining your niche and then how to market it, ensuring that you build a practice that's both impactful and enjoyable. I'll also teach you the business skills they don't cover in grad school, from financial planning to implementing systems that make your practice run smoothly, like a well-oiled machine. In addition, I can help you find ways to diversify your income streams and create financial stability for long-term growth. Whether you're just starting out or looking to take your practice to the next level, I'm here to guide you in every step of the way. Let's work together to turn your vision into a thriving, fulfilling reality. To apply and find out more, just go to practiceoftherapy.com/coaching and consulting. That's practiceoftherapy.com/coaching and consulting. And also you can book a free 15-minute discovery call with me to talk about your goals and vision. I look forward to hearing from you.
Hey there. Are you searching for answers and clarity on your mental health journey? Well, I've got the podcast just for you. Welcome to Finding Your Way Through Therapy, a podcast that's like having a heartfelt conversation with a trusted friend and who understands what you're going through. I'm your host, Steve Biesel, a therapist and proud member of the PsychCraft Network. Finding Your Way Through Therapy is a safe space where we openly explore the emotional complexities of mental health. From busting common myths to sharing actionable advice, we'll navigate this journey together through solo episodes as well as special guests. Discover your inner strength, resilience, and hope as we explore topics like self-care, building healthy relationships, cognitive behavioral therapy, and overcoming challenges. You'll come away with a renewed sense of self and the tools to create a life filled with fulfillment and well-being. So join me on Finding Your Way Through Therapy as we become your companion on this deeply personal journey. I am part of the PsychCraft Network and truly enjoy all the episodes. And back to your regular scheduled programming.
Ready to upgrade your practice from a rusty bicycle to a shiny new sports car? Buckle up, because TherapyNotes is here to turbocharge your journey. It's the comprehensive practice management system you've been craving. Equipped with everything you need to navigate patient records, schedule seamlessly, host remote sessions, craft detailed notes, and tackle insurance billing with ease. And guess what? It's your trusty sidekick, available whenever and wherever duty calls. Picture having more quality time with your clients, all thanks to this digital assistant that never clocks out. Here's the kicker. It's Gordon approved, so you can trust it's the real deal. Bid farewell to paperwork headaches and embrace a new era of efficiency and top-tier care. Ready to level up your private practice game? Swing by practiceoftherapy.com/therapynotes and punch in promo code GORDON for 2 months on the house. Enjoy the show.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast. And I'm so glad and excited to have my dear friend, Julie Harris, back on the podcast. Welcome, Julie.
Gordon, it's so good to see you again. I'm happy to be back here. I feel like I'm a repeat visitor.
Well, you're a pro. I mean, that's all there is to it. And Julie has a podcast, Therapy for Your Money, and she's part of the PsychCraft Network along with this podcast. And Julie's been a dear friend of mine, and we've done a lot of collaborating over the years. But Julie, as I start with everyone, for folks that might not know you, which would be hard for me to believe, but for folks that might not know you, tell them a little bit more about yourself and how you've landed where you've landed.
Yeah, so I'm first and foremost an accountant, lover of numbers. Numbers are my jam. I like to say that my superpower is seeing the story in the numbers. Like the numbers tell me something, and I love looking at that. So I am the founder of Green Oak Accounting, an accounting firm that specializes in working with therapists in private practice. I'm an author. My book is Profit First for Therapists, where I talk about this amazing cash flow management system, and I've customized it for therapists in private practice at every stage. And I host the Therapy for Your Money podcast. I do a lot of speaking in between all of those things. So you might see me out and about at a.
I think Julie and I are both going to be at the Wise Practice Summit in October.
Sure
So here
will.
coming up, probably when this episode, those listening, probably in just a few weeks. So
Yes.
yeah. So, but
Look
yeah.
forward
So,
to seeing you there and grabbing
all
some
right.
lunch.
Yeah. So, Julie and I were talking before we started recording, and just one of the things that she does a lot of work with helping therapists, particularly group practice owners, is figuring out how to compensate their therapists. And I know that in Julie's book, Profit First for Therapists, she used one of the stories that I had, and we can maybe retell that story about a mistake I made early on around compensation of just picking something too random, thinking, well, this sounds good without really looking at my numbers or understanding that. So, Julie, tell folks maybe, I guess maybe a good place to start, or what are the things people need to take into consideration when they're thinking about compensating their people?
Yeah. It's so interesting to me that in group practice, compensation can literally make or break your business, right? Because in most group practices, well, almost all of them, compensation is going to be the single largest expense in the business, right? And the only times that's not the case is at the very, very beginning of group practice. If you're hiring one part-time clinician, right, that might not be the biggest expense. But if you've got a group practice with 5, 10, 50 clinicians, 100% always it's going to be the single largest expense. And yet there's not always a lot of thought that's put into that really, really big decision of how much am I going to spend on this and how am I going to set an intentional compensation model. And I love that you shared this story for the book, which is the early stages of your group practice, right? Where you set compensation models for, I think you had 3 team members, and it was just kind of like, oh yeah, this sounds about right. This is what someone across town is doing. This is going to be our compensation model. And that's often how that decision is made, right? It's like asking a Facebook forum, like, how much are you guys paying? Or I heard, this person I interviewed got offered this much money for competing practice. And that's all well and good. But one of the cornerstones of any small business, and a private practice is a small business, is that it has to make money. It's not optional, right? For those of us living in the real world who need to make an income, right, which is almost all of us, where you're working because you need money to live. You're doing something that you love, but you need money to put food on the table, put gas in the car, right? All of those things. A profitable business means that you have a business that can survive, can grow, can continue to serve your clients and thrive. When there's no money in private practice, when you're not making a profit, that often leads to a business closing because it's not sustainable. And so one of the big things that I preach is that first, a business has to be profitable. And then second, your team members, your clinicians have to create a profit for the practice. In my mind, there is no other way. It's black and white. There has to be profit for every single clinician, every session, or else it doesn't make sense. The math doesn't math.
Right. Right. Yeah. And of course, I would encourage people to get your book, Profit First for Therapists, because Julie does such a great job of breaking down the minutia of all of this in terms of just understanding, not only compensation, but just thinking about profit and being very business minded with everything. But that kind of the short version of the story we're talking about is that when I started my group practice, I originally was just using what we refer to as a contractor model. So in other words, I was just paying them a percentage of what they brought in. And so I just picked up, I thought, well, this would be generous. I can pay them. I'll go ahead and talk a little bit of numbers. It was a tiered system that started at like 60-40, and then it went to 70-30 split, and then 80-20, which that was the part that I made a mistake on. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, if they're bringing in this amount of money, then keeping 20% of it, sure, that's great. But the truth of the matter is, as we know, our biggest expense in private practice, particularly if you're group practice, is what you pay your employees.
Hmm.
And so what I discovered is I go and look at my cash flow each month, and I'm thinking, golly, I should be making more money than
Yeah.
this. And what I was ending up having to do, because I did that random kind of split, which I thought was generous and fair and that sort of thing, is I was having to pay my employees or my contractors out of what I was making for myself. And so they were not only keeping the lion's share of what they were making, but I was also having to pad that with what I was making. So it was spiraling out of control pretty quickly, and it wasn't going to be sustainable. So
And
yeah,
Gordon,
go ahead.
I want
Yeah.
to emphasize what you just said. Like you were working more than in solo practice to subsidize the work that your clinicians were doing, right?
Exactly.
Their work was not covering what you were keeping. That 20% was not covering overhead expenses. So you were
Hmm.
having to work more to offset the nonprofit that they were creating, which is like, if you think about it, like, and that happens every day in so many practices. But when you take a
Hmm.
step back and look at it objectively, if your friend were coming to you and saying, hey, I hired all these people and they're great and I love them. And I also doubled my workload to make sure that I can afford them. You would say, wait, that doesn't make sense. Like you should
All
be
right.
working less because you're now managing them, right?
All
You
right.
and you're
Right.
doing more intake, more admin work, more billing, more everything,
Yeah.
and seeing more clients yourself
Oh,
to
right.
bring money
Right.
in. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah. So, but it turned out, it was a hard lesson to learn, but also I switched from being having contractors to having employees, which I think, having contractors, at least on paper, it sounds easier because you're not having to deal with FICA and
Mm-hmm.
taxes and all of that sort of thing. But in the long run, ended up becoming much more profitable by switching to employee model. And I did a comparison with the people that I did. I said, okay, this is what you're making as a contractor, and this is what you're having to pay out in your taxes, and this is what you're going to make now with this new compensation plan. And they really weren't that much different, but
Mm-hmm.
it was the fact that I was really being more conscious of what the actual numbers were rather than just picking a random number. And
Yeah.
so, and basically I'm still using basically the same kind of compensation plan as I switched to, but I've upped it, over time with us going up on our fees and everything. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. So are you doing now, did you switch to a fee per session, like a dollar amount per
Yes.
session? Was that the
Yes. Yeah. That's, I think, for people that are in, like my practice, we're an insurance based practice. So
Mm-hmm.
you have to be very aware of because you get paid differently from different insurance
Yeah.
companies. And so you need to have a really clear figure of what is your average income per session based on the different, fee amounts that you're receiving. And so I reworked everything, and what I pay my therapist now is just a flat fee per session based on those averages. And
Mm-hmm.
also, it's an incentive based system in that the more clients they see, the more their fee goes up. So I worked it out, the math worked out, and it's
Okay.
it's working well.
So you kept the tiers, correct?
Yes, I kept the
Okay.
tiers, but the tiers are in line with what the actual numbers are. And
Yes.
so
Yes.
that's the key. And
Based
so,
in
and
reality.
right. And so and also, in addition to that, I'm able to provide benefits to my therapists. They've got health insurance if they're full time and all of that sort of thing. And the beauty of it is too, is it doesn't matter to me whether they're part time or full time. It covers everything. So if they only see a few clients, I'm good. I'm still making a profit. They see a
Mm-hmm.
bunch of clients, yeah, I'm still making a profit. So it's all about making sure that they are paying for themselves and their own overhead.
Yes. When I think that's something that is often not considered, right? When I've heard this story so many times before from a practice owner that says, well, I'm hiring and I want to, I have felt taken advantage of before at a group practice. So I want to offer as much as I possibly can. Right. And so
Right.
then they're looking at the numbers and saying, well, I mean, if I offer them, 70, 80%, I'll still be making some money. I'm not selfish. I just want to cover my costs here, right? Something along
Mm-hmm.
those lines. It comes from a place of true
Mm-hmm.
kindness. It absolutely does. But what is often not considered is that this comp model that can make sense for one single therapist, possibly, right? If you're just looking at additional costs in software, right? It's minimal overhead. You might need an email license, a software, a couple of different softwares, EHR, that kind of thing. You're not needing additional space because they're going to share your space. Like the additional costs for one single person are not that big. But if you're hiring 5 clinicians, then yeah, you probably do need larger space. You probably need someone to help on the phone with intake. You probably need someone to do billing, right? And if you haven't left any room to add those things in, then
Mm-hmm.
you have set yourself up for failure, unfortunately, right?
Right.
Because at a certain point, you as the owner can't keep doing all those things. Or if you are, you need to significantly reduce your caseload to
Right.
be able to do that, right? If you're all of a sudden
Mm-hmm.
doing intake for 5 clinicians, that could be a lot. That's a lot of
Right.
scheduling and rescheduling, and the copay didn't go through, right? That all of that is just a lot of work, and someone
Mm-hmm.
needs to do it, and someone needs to get paid to do it,
Right.
whoever that
Right.
is. So it's always coming from this beautiful place of kindness, but
Mm-hmm.
it's just not putting our business owner hats on and saying like, okay, if I keep going down this road, what is it going to take? What will the business need? And how are we going to pay for that? Um,
Right. Right. Yeah.
those are the things that
Because
come up
yeah,
often.
because and I think too, just keeping a pulse on it all is so important. I mean, if you're not looking at your profit and loss statements or somebody that you designate is looking at it,
Hmm.
you can get down a rabbit hole pretty quickly and find yourself in some trouble.
Yeah. And I would also argue that you can't abdicate that responsibility. So even if you have someone on your team who's keeping an eye on things, you as the business owner still also have to look over their shoulder and keep an eye on
Mm-hmm.
things. And I feel
Mm-hmm.
that way about accounting. I feel that way about billing, right? Just because you hire a biller doesn't mean that you just shake your hands and you never have to look at it again. Quite the contrary. You definitely need to
Right.
keep an eye, poke your head in
Right.
there, make sure everything that's supposed to be happening is happening, because
All right.
I know I've talked to a lot of practice owners over the years who have uncovered big surprises when they finally started looking like, wait a second, we're only making this much money. How come? What's happening? Oh, none of these denials have been worked. What's going on? Like
Yeah.
there's just there, you can trust but verify.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Julie, I know you've got just on this whole topic of compensation, you've got a webinar coming up. And for folks that are listening to this episode, you want to say more about that and just what
Yes.
it teaches?
Yes. So I encounter a lot of practice owners just in the course of business who are thinking about starting a group practice, who are in the early stages of a group practice, and who have a lot of questions around compensation, how to structure things, how to make sure that you are setting the practice up for financial success. And so I have a free webinar available for you. It is on September 27th at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, and a replay is available. That's a question that comes up often. So even if you
Mm-hmm.
can't attend at that specific day and time, I encourage you to sign up for the webinar to get access to the replay, because in that webinar, I cover some of the common mistakes that I have seen practice owners make in starting their group practice so that you can avoid those mistakes. There are a lot of things that you can do up front, whether you are hiring your very first clinician or you already have a few. There are a lot of things that you can do to set yourself up for financial success, but also success in your relationship with your team members as well. You can treat your team members fairly, but also make more money. When you're growing a group, usually one of the goals is to make a little bit more money, right? I say one of because often there are other goals like increasing your impact, serving more clients, right? Those are really great honorable goals. But I'm an accountant, so I think you should make more money as well. So I want you to build a group practice in a way that will allow you to make more money down the line as well. And so that webinar, completely free, September 27th, 12 Eastern noon. And you can go to greenoakaccounting.com/Gordon to register for that webinar. So I encourage you to go there. And Gordon, will you put that in the show notes as well, please?
Yes, we will. Absolutely. Absolutely. It'll be in the show notes for people to find that. And also, we mentioned your book. You want to say more about your book for people?
Of course. Yes. So the book is Profit First for Therapists. It is a great resource for implementing Profit First, but also, Gordon, as you know, I'm a mom. I have 3 school-aged kids. And so when my kids were little, I would sneak veggies into their food because they didn't eat a whole lot of veggies. And so I like to think that I snuck some veggies into the Profit First for Therapists book. I really thought holistically about if a practice owner is picking up this book, what do they need to know about Profit First? But what do they also need to know about managing their money in their private practice? So I snuck in a few extras like paying down debt, because a lot of therapists I know have student loan debt. There's a whole chapter on team compensation, because I know that you're probably going to need to know what to do with that. So I snuck in a few extras that are not really Profit First related, but I knew are going to help practice owners like holistically look at the money in their practice. So all of that is included. The book is available wherever you buy books. I recorded the audio book myself as well, so you can get it on Kindle, on Audible, and paperback as well on Amazon and a lot of other places too.
Yeah. It's an essential book for anybody in private practice as far as I'm concerned. I mean, it's just one of the first things you need to read, I think, particularly if you're starting out. So, yeah.
And definitely. You'll read a couple of fun stories about Gordon too. I love it. Thank you. Thank you for participating. I mean, I interviewed Gordon for the book. I shared a couple of his stories. So if you want a little behind the scenes about Gordon, they're in the book too.
All right. Thanks, Julie. But Julie, I guess we need to watch our time and got to be respectful of your time. Again, she mentioned the webinar coming up, and there'll be links here in the show notes, greenoakaccounting/Gordon. And that'll get you to the page to sign up for the webinar. I'm looking forward to seeing that. And so any other closing thoughts here, Julie?
Yeah, I mean, you and I have chatted about this often, but Gordon, if I can just step on my soapbox for a second, I really truly believe that every practice deserves to be profitable and that it is in service to everyone around you. This is shifting, but there has been this kind of thought in the mental health industry that you almost have to be a martyr to be a therapist, right? Like, you're not going to make any money in this business, or you shouldn't be thinking about money. You should just be helping your clients. And I think that has led us over the last several years to just an incredible amount of burnout in this industry. I think you deserve to get paid. You deserve to get paid well. You deserve to be able to take time off, go on a vacation, have health insurance, contribute to retirement. Like, all those things are things that you absolutely can and should expect to be able to do as a practice owner. You should expect those from your practice, and it is doable, right? That's the good news. And that, I feel like that's what I have to shout from the rooftops. It is possible. It's not easy every day, but it absolutely is possible. And you can go build the practice that is your dream, not your nightmare.
Right. And I would add to that, Julie, one of the things that I think most of us that get into this field do it because we have a passion for helping people and helping them work through things. And if you're not making a profit, you're not going to be able to keep doing that. And so you have to do do that. I see it all the time where people they get into this money mindset, which that's a whole other episode we could do, just not being able of really undercutting themselves and not valuing what they're worth in terms of their professional ability, and the fact that people are willing to pay for that help.
Yeah. And even if you are working with clients who are struggling financially, that doesn't mean that you have to be in that same situation. You don't have to put yourself there in a place of struggle. It's okay to be able to pay your bills and to do things that are going to allow you to do that. You should be able to pay off your student loans and just do all the things that are part of life.
Right. Well, Julie, we'll have you back, and be sure and check out the webinar. Again, greenoakaccounting.com/Gordon, and sign up. I hope everybody will do that. Well, again, a big thanks to Julie for joining me on the podcast. Julie is such a good friend, and I always enjoy being with her. It's fun. We've got the upcoming Wise Practice Summit that's coming up, and Julie's going to be a speaker there as well. And I always enjoy being with Julie and hanging out with her. And she's such a smart person and just really knows this whole financial side of private practice backwards and forwards. And it's really, really her passion and her whole specific niche as well. That's all that Green Oak Accounting does, is work with therapists. But do check out the webinar that we mentioned, and it's at greenoakaccounting.com/Gordon. And also check out her book, and you'll find links here in the show notes to get to the Profit First for Therapists book. And just a lot to learn there. And also, as I mentioned in part of the intro, is I'd love to work with you. If you're interested in doing some consulting and coaching with me, you can do that by going to practiceoftherapy.com/coaching and consulting. And that'll get you to the landing page to find out more about that. And also a big thanks to TherapyNotes for being a sponsor of the podcast. They are the leading electronic health record system for mental health providers. They're who I use in my practice. Couldn't operate without them, and they're constantly adding new things to their platform just to make it better and more user friendly. And so I can't say enough about TherapyNotes and what a good product it is and the platform. And be sure and use if you go over to practiceoftherapy.com/therapynotes. Use that promo code Gordon, just GORDON, and you can get 2 months for free and try them out. So take care, folks. Looking forward to you being with us in the future episodes. Just as a heads up, we're going to do some encore episodes of some great interviews from the past and just to kind of highlight those. So got more of that coming. So take care, folks, and have a good rest of your week and weekend. Oh, and do take time to follow us and subscribe to the podcast wherever you might be listening to it. You've been listening to the Practice of Therapy podcast with Gordon Brewer, part of the PsychCraft network of podcasts. You can find out more about the other great podcasts in the network by visiting psychcraftnetwork.com. And if you haven't done so already, please visit us at practiceoftherapy.com and get your free private practice startup guide, along with a lot of other great resources and webinars and free things just by visiting. Also, be sure to follow us wherever you might be listening to your podcasts. This podcast is intended to be educational in purpose and is not intended to give legal, accounting, or counseling advice. If you need a professional, find the right person for that.